Hi again everyone, John Velasco here from Phone Arena. You're watching our in-depth video review of the Pantech crossover, which is available right now through AT&T for the 2-year contract price of only $70. It's basically almost like a mid-range handset. It's Pantech's very first Android-powered smartphone, and it features a landscape sliding QWERTY keyboard. At first glance, it might look like the crossover might seem like a rugged phone just because it has these angular cutouts and has a design and style similar to other rugged phones out there, but it is indeed just a regular smartphone. It's constructed out of plastic all around, which is surprisingly heavy for a handset, and a little bit on the bulky side as well. Not the best looking thing out there, and definitely shows its resemblance to Pantech's feature phones. Presented with a 3.1-inch capacitive touchscreen, which has a resolution of 320 by 240 pixels, it's definitely on the smaller side. On top of that, it's not the best quality out there, just because it's a little bit difficult to make out tiny of text, not as clear as we'd like, and it has this yellow tinge to its display and sports some very poor viewing angles, so you kind of have difficulty making out what's on screen. Below the touchscreen we find a combination of physical and capacitive buttons. The menu and home keys are really easy to press out, and the capacitive back and search keys are also there. On the left edge of the phone you have the volume rocker, which is easy to feel out, and on top of that it exhibits a good response. Meanwhile on the right side you have the dedicated shutter key. You have also the micro USB port for charging and data connection. On the top side of the phone you have the 3.5mm headset jack, and you have the shoulder buttons, which is easy to feel out with the finger. On top of that they have a really good tactile feel. Dedicated power buttons right here in the top right, and top left is the function button, which you can map to a variety of different applications. The crossover has a springy feel when you open up the handset, and it clicks into place, and once you have it open you're greeted to the 4-row QWERTY keyboard. The button size are pretty good. It's kind of flat, but though you still have a good feel to them with the finger. Overall we found it very useful to use, and we didn't have too much of an issue typing with it. And finally, you have the 3-megapixel camera with the notches here for the speakerphone. Removing the back cover is pretty simple. Just slide it off. It gives you access to its battery, SIM card, and also micro SD card slots. Definitely far from being the peppiest thing out there in the market, the Pantech crossover is powered by a 600 MHz processor, and for most basic operations it does a pretty good job. It's more than tolerable. You can tell that live wallpaper is activated. Navigating between the home screens is pretty responsive for the most part. At times though we do notice a little bit of lag or slowdown, but still it's not really too bad, and it's more than acceptable. As you can probably tell, the handset's running Pantech's customized Android experience, running on top of Android 2.2 Froyo, and just basically builds on the same foundations as stock Android, except for the fact that the layout's slightly different. You have the row icons in the bottom row here. You have a lot of useful widgets that get you quick access to certain functions. The app panel's laid out in traditional grid-like view. It's definitely okay looking, but nothing really that stands out. Obviously, using the physical keyboard, you get the best messaging experience, but you still have the on-screen keyboards as an alternative. You have the stock Android keyboard available to you. On top of that, you have also the swipe one, so if you're used to this intricate way of inputting text, you could use it. For the most part, it is fairly responsive, though. The buttons are very small and tiny, both in portrait and in landscape. Not surprisingly, the handset offers the same Gmail experience out there on other handsets. It gives you all the neat features you'd commonly expect, and setup is pretty simple. Generally, username and password automatically set up, and for some alternative email accounts, it might require some additional pieces of information. You'll need a little bit of patience when it comes to web browsing, because the handset does take some time loading up complex web pages like ours, but you still treat the same amount of features. Double tap to zoom in. It has some pretty good kinetic scrolling here. You have pinch gestures to zoom in, zoom out. Unfortunately, it lacks flash support, so you're missing out on the full desktop-like experience. Every now and then you'll notice a little bit of lag as well. The music player interface doesn't deviate from what else we see out there, and it's more than functional at its core. It displays the usual set of information, the album cover, track information, on-screen controls. When you're playing a song, you can quickly browse through your songs just by swiping left and right with the album covers. As far as the audio quality, it does produce a moderate amount of tones, and it doesn't sound too strained at the loudest volume setting. Surprisingly, we're able to actually load a video encoded in MPEG-4, 1280 by 720 resolution, and as you can tell, it is playing, but it is kind of slow with its operation, not the smoothest out there. Top of that, the poor quality display doesn't make for the best experience. Don't expect much out of the handset's 3-megapixel autofocus camera just because it doesn't take any exciting shots. In outdoor conditions and good lighting, details are average, but it does produce some cooler looking colors. It does poorly in low lighting conditions. There's a lot of noise. On top of that, details are kind of flat. Calling quality is actually satisfactory with the handset, just because the earpiece produces a moderate amount of tones, not the most glaring out there, but still more than tolerable. On top of that, voices have a deep tone to them, while on the other end of the line, our callers didn't have any issues hearing our voices. When we switch to the speakerphone, however, it does produce some crackly tones at the loudest volume setting. Signal strength seems to be pretty good with the handset. It doesn't fluctuate that much, and on top of that, it retains a good amount of bars in high coverage areas, and in our time testing it, we didn't experience any dropped phone calls. If you're big into voice phone calls, you'll be happy with the battery life we'll get out of it. After fully charging it, we managed to get 10 hours of continuous talk time in single charge, while the manufacturer has a rate for 5 hours. In terms of normal operation, we managed to get a decent one-day use out of it, so it's more than sufficient for our taste. Naturally, it's really nice to see that Pantech has decided to move into the smartphone category, and the Pantech crossover is a decent start. Not the most alluring device out there, but still more than decent on its own. For $70 on contract, you really can't beat. It offers that physical keyboard, which is great for text messaging, and you still have all the features with Android. Although it might not offer the best photos or videos, it's still a pretty decent handset, especially if you're looking for something that's relatively inexpensive and won't hit your budget. So if you'd like to learn more about the handset, you can check out our website, phonearena.com. Thanks, guys.